So my name is Jean-Marie Djaya. So I'm based at SAP Switzerland, and I would like to host this webinar with you, with my team members Roman and Christophe here. So today webinar will be about the SAP BPC 10.x NetWeaver platform. So we are going to share a few updates and benefits to use SAP HANA MDX. The agenda here looks quite simple. So we are going to start with an overview of MDX and especially discuss about SAP HANA MDX. Then the next chapter here will be about the improvement of the benefits we have, for example, when we use SAP HANA MDX within SAP BPC 10.x NetWeaver platform. Then the third chapter will be about customer feedback, where Christophe is going to provide any updates and any feedback and customer experience while using SAP HANA MDX. Then we will finally close this webinar with a Q&A session. Great, so starting with the first chapter here, so this is about an overview first, because the term multidimensional expression is a very wide topic, subject. So we are going to try as much as possible to talk about the MDX and also focus also on the SAP HANA MDX. Yeah, as we all might know, so MDX stands for multidimensional expression. So this is one of the query languages that we use, for example, to query multidimensional data store. And it really helps, for example, to navigate smoothly to, for example, to data store objects, for instance, the dimensional hierarchies, levels, and measures, and also the members. Our main purpose here is to discuss about the SAP HANA MDX. So please note that SAP HANA supports MDX language since the release version of version 1.0, starting with support package 1. And MDX, within SAP HANA context, is fully integrated to the SAP HANA database. And for example, if you develop or if you write, for example, MDX statements, so this will reach the SAP HANA database through the SAP HANA interface. For instance, the wide use or the commonly used client software we have here is Microsoft Excel. For example, Microsoft Excel pivot table that generates MDX statement submitted to SAP HANA database. Yeah, just to give you, for example, a few examples how, for example, you can send or submit MDX statements to the SAP HANA database. If you are using, for example, Microsoft Excel, for example, you can reach SAP HANA database through ODBO. And if you are using, for example, another client software that the MDX has to reach the SAP HANA database, you can also go through the HTTP protocol. So this will be, for example, through XML/A. So this is just to give you an example of how, for example, you can reach submit queries to the SAP HANA database. Okay, so the next chapter here I would like to discuss about, so this will be about the benefits we may have, for example, with SAP HANA MDX. So the first one here, we see here that the great news is SAP HANA MDX is the native support of hierarchies. And also the second feature I can highlight here is about the session read consistency. What does it mean? So the session read consistency means that the SAP HANA MDX engine makes sure that all the sessions stay, for example, consistent throughout the whole session when you are submitting, for example, an MDX statement to the database. And we do also have also optimization also for reports for member formula, and also support for multiple hierarchies of the same dimension here. For example, And please note that all of these improvements are now included in revision 97. And you do also have here an SAP note here that I can state here, 1902743. So you can, for additional information also, for example, if you want to see more information about the member formula improvement, the nested member formula improvement, so you may check this SAP notes. So we have here the customer feedback. As I mentioned already. So Christophe, my team member, is going to provide his experience and also customer feedback on this topic.
So my name is Christophe Posson. I'm working for the Big Data and Cloud Analytics Services department for SAP BPC. And I was involved in a quite intensive and big BPC 10 migration from an on-premise system at a big customer towards HEC. HEC is our own HANA Enterprise Cloud, but that is of course not the main focus of this presentation. But the fact is that when you move to HEC, you are also running on HANA. So this means this customer was going for a BPC 10.0 consolidation implementation running on top of BW, which was running on top of HANA, of course. Short agenda as well, maybe first some customer highlights and what the situation was in the beginning, and how the decision came, in fact, to migrate towards BPC on HANA, and then the long story of the project ongoing and the tight cooperation with HANA Development, with Roman Moehl's team, and all the improvements that came afterwards. Then we'll have a short look at the landscapes. We will have a look at how HANA MDX works specifically for BPC 10. And also I've always kept track of all the, so we had a set of reports and input sheets that we tested every time. And we have the on-premise runtimes versus the runtimes on the different HANA revisions. You will see that we've passed from revision 83 towards revision 97 now. So we've come a long way with this customer. But you will see that the performance results are quite impressive. And then some key takeaways. About this customer, the customer is situated in the industrial machinery and components industry. It has over 47,000 employees, out of which I think in the meantime actually they reached already about 500 active BPC consolidation users. So those are end users located across the globe that run consolidation packages, run reports, enter data via input sheets, and so on. They have two main models in the BPC environment. One is of course the consolidation cube, which started off during the proof of concept we did in September with about 150 million records in it, but currently we have crossed the 400 million records in this cube. This is because during every closing there are a lot of new records generated due to some consolidation specific, for example, currency translation adjustments in the past and things like that. There is a slide representing the complexity of the model later on. And then there is another important model which started off with about 17 million records and ended up with 30 million currently, and of course still increasing. The customer is heavily using dimension member formulas. You will see later on in a screenshot some examples of the generated MDX statements in HANA Studio. And they also have an external application, which is non-SAP, that currently is leveraging the BW MDX engine to read data out of the BPC cubes. It's some kind of dashboarding that they use on top of the cubes inside the BW environment. Customer has a very long SAP history. They have 4 ECC systems, a 10 terabyte, in the meantime a bit bigger already, BW system with the accelerators and BPC 10.0 on top of it. And then they use some BI4 front-end tools. A long time ago, I was already involved at the first 7.5 NetWeaver ramp-up implementation at the same customer for a planning project, but that project, sadly enough, never got live. But then, sometime thereafter, the customer decided to upgrade to BPC 10.0 and started off with a consolidation implementation, on which they also experienced quite big performance issues. In fact, they should have gone live already last year, but that go live was postponed at least 2 times because of these performance issues. At the end of 2013, then I was called in to review their BPC system, and that was mainly the on-premise system. So they had BPC 10.0 as well running on their on-premise BW, so the very big BW system. But they had a lot of issues, like optimizing of the smaller models. So the one with the 17 million records ran for 8 hours and more. They had quite slow reports and input sheets, and what was the most impacted was the fact that any other BW regular activities were impacting the BPC activities and vice versa. So there was quite a heavy performance impact of ongoing BW jobs when BPC was active and vice versa. So back then we already did a lot of optimizations. We improved the light optimizing time, auto rollup of requests into BWA, etc., activated the BPC parallel execution framework, and so on and so on. But still, the customer was, the end users in fact were not very satisfied with the performance of the BPC consolidation application. So somewhere in the middle of 2014, we decided that we would try putting BPC on a standalone BW machine, so not to avoid the impact of BW on BPC and vice versa. And that's where we actually proposed them to do a proof of concept with BPC 10.0 immediately on HEC to avoid any impact with their current provider. And so they agreed to do that. The aim of the POC was not to do any functional review, so we were not going to review the consolidation rules or how the currency translation was set up, things like that. We were purely going to compare the runtimes between the on-premise BPC and the BPC running on HANA. So for every aspect of the application, loading data, running the consolidation rules, script logic calculations, sending data, and of course refreshing data in the reports. These are some slides that come from a presentation that the customer gave themselves after the go live. So it's just an indication. I'm not going to go too deep into this. It's how the model is built up, and to indicate the complexity of the model. So you can see they do monthly closings, and then every quarter the closing is a bit bigger because they have some extra reports that they have to finalize. And just to indicate the number of rows that gets generated monthly, that's what I said before. So in the consolidation cube, we at least generate over 5.5 million records extra every month. I think in the meantime it's even more. So just to indicate that the models are quite big. This was the project timeline. As you can see, the project start was pretty long compared to the other milestones of the project. This is because this is the on-premise BPC implementation. And this is in August 2014. We started with the POC on HEC, and then we had some what they call parallel runs until we went live in March. Again, this is feedback from the customer themselves. So this is a presentation they gave on a forum in their home country after the go live, where they indicate why they wanted to go for BPC on HEC and specifically BPC on HANA. So why they choose HEC was because of the very tight schedule, and HEC is pretty fast in implementing. The POC system was immediately available. They had SAP services on board for the experience in the migration towards BPC on. And they also had an IT outsourcing supplier change in 2014, which is what I mentioned before. So to avoid any complexity with their current supplier, which was not ready to run or to host the HANA system, they chose for HEC. Now, what was their experience? The HEC integration went pretty fast. I'm not going to go too much into that. After putting the current application, so the on-premise application was just actually moved from the on-premise BW system using transaction UGBR. So we took a backup and we restored it on the BW on HANA system. And we made it HANA optimized. And after that, 80% of the functionality was working out of the box. So nothing to do about that. There was a clear performance boost, so between 30 and over 300% faster compared to the on-premise situation. Some of the functionality did require some adaptations or SAP fixes. We will come to that later. Yeah, and indeed, it took 2.5 months in very close cooperation between myself, the guys from the HEC team and the guys from HANA Development and BPC Development to overcome all the showstopper issues and to, actually to convince the customer that BPC on HANA was the way to go forward. And they agreed to that. And so we got a go to go for productive HEC. And so since March last year, 2015, the customer is now live with BPC on HANA. What are the lessons learned according to the customer? They say the proof of concept is a must-do, just to check whether HANA will bring any performance gains, and see what the complexity might be in case you are using, for example, very complex dimension member formulas, just to estimate how much the migration efforts will be in the end. The close collaboration between the customers and then SAP Consulting and HANA Development was crucial in this project. Thanks to this implementation, and I think Roman can confirm that. The HANA MDX specifically for BPC has evolved quite intensively, and we will see later on that actually it's pretty stable now, pretty much every BPC specific MDX stuff is supported now. A big difference for the customers with an old school SAP customer is that HANA bugs do not get solved using subnodes. So if there is a bug in a certain revision on HANA, then you will have to wait for the next release of the next revision to get it fixed. If developers find a fix for it, which most of the time they do actually pretty quickly. But so just to say that it's not just implementing an SAP node and the fix is there, but on HANA side the fixes take a bit longer time, so you have to incorporate that in your planning, of course. Do decent stress testing to validate the HANA sizing. Yeah, and then HEC specific, that's not so important. Maybe on the landscape. So as you can see here, this is their, or this was their on-premise BW SAP landscape. So they have a 3-tier environment. In fact, it's a 4-tier. They have an extra tier in between development and quality and acceptance. But it's more or less the architecture is exactly the same. So they have ECC systems running on DB6. They have BW systems also running on DB6. They have a big corporate performance management layer, so for the regular BW reporting. Then they have a BPC staging layer where they prepare the data, both master and transaction data, before loading it onto BPC. And then of course they use the SAP user interfaces. And like I said before, they also have an external application which is leveraging the BW MDX engine to read data from the BPC cubes within the CPMB namespace. Then during the POC, we moved into this kind of landscape. So actually we isolated one block inside our project HEC, so HEC for project system, where we copied the data from the BPC staging cubes. So we just had an RFC connection between the HEC system and the on-premise production system. Thanks to the UGBR backup, we had all the historical data available in the HEC system as well. And we could perfectly run performance tests comparing the on-premise runtimes with the HANA runtimes. And then after the project, the proof of concept was done, the customer agreed to go live. So we moved into the productive landscape, and that looks more or less like this. So we are no longer using the on-premise BPC components, but that is all separated now into the productive landscape, where they now also have 3 tiers. Yeah, that's pretty much it. So they have the staging layers connected to the on-premise system. So all the BPC staging and the preparation is still happening on the on-premise BWs, and then we use that data to load it onto the BPC environments in HEC and running on HANA. Currently, the external application leveraging the BW MDX engine is still consuming data straight out of the cubes in the CPMB namespace. But in the meantime, they are also rewriting their own application. So it's their own interfacing to HANA. They are rewriting that to be able to read directly from the optimized HANA MDX models. Once you activate HANA MDX for a BPC model, we will see that later. Some views are being created on the HANA side. And the external application is now developing an interface so that they can read from those views as well, so that they will benefit from the optimized performance as well. So just to say that the HANA MDX interface is also pretty open. It's not limited to connecting BPC and BW to use it, but also external applications can leverage the interface. Just quick some screenshots about how to enable HANA MDX. There's a note for that. You have to, of course, enable the global parameters that allows acceleration into HANA in general. Then per environment, you have to put the accelerator on, and then per model, you have to set the enable HANA MDX parameters to X. Once you do that, the column views get created on the HANA side, and reports will be accelerated. We will see later on in the graphs and the Excel file that I've used to keep up the runtimes that the performance gains are pretty impressive. But I did want to point out some of the issues we encountered during the project. So as I said before, we started off in end of August, begin September 2014 with HANA revision 83 or 82 even, I think it was. And we ended up with revision 97. Yes, now they are testing 97. They are live with 93, in fact. Like Jean already mentioned, there was this issue with multiple hierarchies of the same dimension. Actually, thanks to the help of BPC and HANA Development, we could convince the customer that this will be solved in future revisions, but we had to hard code an ABAP fix for that to be able to demo it to them in the POC. So that was an exceptional activity, but as stated before, this is now officially supported as well. We also noted, and you will see that later on in the performance comparisons, that once we went on to SP9, so the revisions 90 and onwards, we noticed that the performance dropped a bit on bigger data sets compared to revision 82 and 83. But as of revision 97, the memory footprint has been reduced as well, as Jean explained already before. So this issue is nearly overcome, but you will see that there are some exceptions still in the comparison sheet, on which Roman and I are working currently to see why they are taking still a bit longer. We also had some issues in the beginning, that when you combined more complex statements into one report, that the data was not returned. For example, when combining year-to-date and periodic measures together, very complex dimension member formulas using combination of sum and lag functions, using parent H2 references within dimension member formulas, things like that were not returning any data. But I'd like to clearly emphasize that all these bugs are fixed now, and like I said before, revision 97 is pretty stable to run BPC with HANA MDX enabled. There is one thing to be foreseen. Oh, sorry, that was too fast. A built-in check on the division by zero error. Maybe Roman can, in the Q&A session, say something about that, because I know they are working on a fix for that. But currently, you have to build in a check on possible divisions by zero yourself in the MDX, so in the dimension member formula, because otherwise, whenever you run a report that has a dimension member formula that does a division, and the denominator turns out to be a zero because of a certain context selection in your report, then the statement will fail. So that was actually the biggest effort during the migration, was to build in those checks in all the dimension member formulas. And the customer is using them quite extensively. I think in total on the two models they have over 300 dimension member formulas implemented for this environment. And maybe just to give an indication, this is the execution, so the translated MDX statement into HANA already in the HANA Studio. As you can see, they're combining year-to-date and periodic measure here. They have a whole set of dimension member formulas, and note especially the little block here of the cursors. I can move it a very long way to the right as well, so just to indicate that these statements are really long and very complex, and that they still perform pretty well actually when running them on HANA. So I've highlighted some of the complexities. Like here you can see they use a parent H2 reference inside the dimension member formula itself. Here you can see I've built in the division by zero check. So there is a denominator here somewhere, and we first check if the denominator is zero, then the result should be null, and else he can execute the actual division. And then there's this complex formulas using current member, the sum and lag combinations and things like that. But those are all issues that have been solved along the way, in fact. And now, of course, the most interesting part of it all. So you can see here a screenshot of the Excel file that I've been keeping track of. We had a set of input sheets and reports and also some packages in the smaller model, and then a set of reports and input sheets in the consolidation model. I have also indicated more or less the number of records which were present in the model during the tests. So you can see that on the on-premise we started off with 15 million, and currently we are at around 31 million in the smaller model. And in the consolidation model we started off with, this has to be 150 million. And currently we are at around 430 million records. Now, I will interpret the results by yourself. I think especially the comparison between on-premise and the final column is of interest. You will see that there are some ups and downs in between the revisions, but the general trend is that running BPC on HANA improves performance quite a lot. You can see here, for example, we go from 26 to 5 seconds, 26 to 4 seconds, 35 to 2 seconds, to 5 seconds, and so on and so on. Here, for example, the one that ran for 1 minute and 22 on-premise is a typical key figure report where they used dimension member formulas very intensively. Same here, on-premise, the report ran for 4.5 minutes. On HANA, it runs in 22 seconds. So just to show you that the performance gain is quite impressive. Some of them here are marked orange because they tend to be running a bit longer even than on-premise for one, and some are a bit slower than what we measured in the previous revisions. So those are the ones that I mentioned before, which Roman and myself and especially the HANA development team is still investigating, because when they run the same statement on their own internal testing system, they get a lot better runtimes. Maybe another indicator for the performance improvements is if we compare the on-premise runtime versus the different revisions in percentage gains, and then you can see that we clearly gain on average over 50 or 60% for all the input sheets and report executions, except again for those orange blocks where we will further investigate and where we will surely find what the root cause is for this performance degradation. And also in a graphical way, it always gives a better impression. Needless to say that the very high blue bars are the on-premise runtimes, and all the colorful low bars are, of course, the HANA runtimes. But as I said before, you can see some ups and downs in between the different revisions. But the trend is clear that, yeah, versus a regular database, HANA is doing a lot better. So this is on the smaller model, and this is then on the consolidation model. This was that large key figure report, which ran over 4 minutes on premise. Yeah, you can see how big the difference is compared to the runtimes on the different HANA revisions. And last but not least, maybe some key takeaways. As I said, there is a very big difference in runtimes compared to the on-premise application. Certainly with HANA MDX enabled, but also without HANA MDX enabled. It has to be said that when you just migrate out of the box and you do not enable HANA MDX, but only enable the HANA Accelerator, even then runtimes are a lot better than what we measured on-premise. When we started off this project, HANA MDX was still quite new and had some limitations. But like I said, as of revision 97, most of those limitations, specifically to BPC, have been overcome, and the performance is pretty stable. Yeah, this project clearly shows that HANA MDX is a game changer for BPC performance, and also it's also important to mention that external applications, like the one that is being used at this customer, can also leverage the HANA MDX interface with very positive results as well. A second key takeaway, I think, that we learned out of this project was that the replacement of a regular database with HANA, specifically for BPC, is pretty straightforward, especially when you can move to a separate standalone new BW machine on HANA. Because then using the UGBR backup and restore functionality and the HANA migration program allows you to migrate any BPC environment, in fact, only in a matter of days to get you to start testing the performance on the HANA environment.
Could you elaborate on the procedure to do performance testing?
Yeah, what we did for this project, and specifically during the POC phase, because that was, of course, the most important part, is we took a set of reports, input sheets, and packages. Actually, the customer gave that list to us because they said those are the reports and input sheets that run the longest on the on-premise system. So we put them in the Excel file. We noted down the runtimes just by executing the report or input sheet with a certain selection in the on-premise system. And we did exactly the same exercise once we were on HANA. And then we just compared those runtimes. And that's actually the procedure to do the performance testing. Other than that, to do the stress testing, we used load runner to generate loads on the system, in fact, to see whether the BW application servers and the underlying HANA database machines were powerful enough to cope with 500 users doing things in parallel. So therefore we use load runner.
Is there a way to improve the query performance in BPC with aggregates?
Well,
or other functions?
Then, to be honest, I've never tried it. I think it's also not best practice to generate anything which is custom specific inside the CPMB namespace. So like generating extra indexes, creating aggregate cubes on top of a BPC cube. This is not best practice. And like I said, I haven't tried it myself. And of course, when you have HANA underneath, there is no need for aggregates because the HANA aggregation engine is so fast that there is no need to do that anymore. The only BW native functionality that does help in performance is to run regularly a light optimize, because it also compresses the requests from the FFAC table to the EFAC table, and it updates the statistics on the database. Other than that, in a non-HANA system, you can also, like I mentioned before, you can also leverage the BPC parallel execution framework to improve query performance. But then you need to make sure that your application servers are powerful enough to cope with the extra load.
My name is Paul Carney. I'm been listening in on the presentation. I'm from the COE in Ireland. Just a question regarding light optimization. You mentioned that compression is important, or light optimization is important. You mentioned that it moves data from the F table to the E table and does a compression. But on the HANA system, there is only one fact table now, so
correct.
There should not be. Yeah.
Yes. But still compressing there is important, because as you know, when you start reporting, when you start inputting data or calculating data on BPC, it's just generating delta records, right? So it's generating a lot of the extra records, which have to be aggregated afterwards to come to the actual result in the reports. And the light optimize will still execute a compression on the F table. Technically, it works different on HANA than on a regular database, because, like, indeed, there is no move anymore to a separate table. But still, it gets rid of the request IDs and it compresses the data even further, and it updates the database statistics.
Okay.
So it's still advisable to run the light optimize.
Yeah. Okay. I think maybe perhaps after a certain amount of data volume, it's probably more beneficial. You might notice the performance.
Yes.
Benefit
yes,
maybe
correct,
after, I don't know,
correct.
200 million records or 150 million records. I know, like in the storage of the Delta storage and main storage, I think, like you're saying, the request will be compressed, and that helps the Delta merge speed up even.
Yes, correct. That's what I wanted to add. The light optimize will also trigger a Delta merge so that the Delta tables on HANA side remain small as well. Yeah.
And one other last question from me, thank you, if that's okay. You mentioned you mentioned at the end of your presentation about you noticed with your customer the customer even noticed a benefit in performance with enabling the accelerator, the enable accelerator and accelerator on parameters, even with enable HANA MDX not enabled. So can you explain what are the benefits? Is it that the HANA table views are created and that you're now reading table data from in-memory? Or is there also an aspect of logic that's also on the HANA database programs that are...
well, it's the same principle counts. So for MDX queries, instead of using the HANA MDX engine straight away when you have enable HANA MDX on, it will still use the BW MDX engine, so the one that has been used previously as well. But of course that engine can retrieve the data faster from the HANA side, because the HANA is stored in memory, in a columnar table storage, optimally compressed, etc., etc. So just the fact of being on HANA makes it already a lot faster.
Okay.
And of course, if you then look at the performance of the reports heavily using dimension member formulas, without HANA MDX enabled, you could clearly see that the performance was a lot slower, because then, of course, the BW MDX engine is working hard.
Okay, that's very, very good to know. And regarding the dimension member formulas, I know it was stated in the past that in non-HANA environment database, we don't recommend dimension member formulas.
Yes, stay away.
Stay away.
Correct. Stay away from dimension member formulas. Well, that's actually the point of this presentation, is that we no longer have to stay away from them. Like I said, the customer in question here has over 300 or 400 different dimension member formulas. Some pretty easy, some super complex, and they still perform very well running on HANA. So there's no more need to stay away from using the dimension member formulas, because in fact it's a very powerful feature in BPC, which is not used enough in the NetWeaver environment due to the performance problems we had in the past.
Okay, and on that point about the dimension member formulas, are all the MDX keywords that are supported in BW by BW MDX engine, are they supported on HANA now, or is there any limitation?
In fact, I know I can only speak for the BPC MDX keywords that are supported. So the ones that are supported and that are mentioned on the help.sap.com on the BPC 10.x help, so all the MDX keywords that are specified there, they work out of the box on HANA as well. But I cannot tell for all because I know that BPC on itself does not support all statements of the MDX library. So.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
During your proof of concept project, have you reworked any data manager packages or reports to improve performance, or did the improvement come from the database layer only?
Yeah, good question. That was also my question to the customer in the beginning. How do you want to proceed on this? You want us to do a functional review as well? But they clearly said no, we just want to compare on-premise versus HANA. And so what we did is, like I said, we did the UGBR backup, restore, make it HANA optimized, enable HANA MDX, and that's done. We didn't do anything else. So the performance comes from two sides actually. One is just running on HANA and having a HANA accelerator for BPC enabled. And secondly, when activating the HANA MDX engine, then you get an extra performance boost for BPC reports.
Okay. How's the migration process done is the question.
That's an easy one. That's an easy one. Like I said, what we did is we used UGBR to back up the complete BPC environment from the on-premise BW system. So we just backed it up in local CSV files. We moved those files to the application server being on HEC and on HANA. We restored the backup. And then the only thing you have to do is to, well, if you were already on BPC 10, there is a program, I don't know the name by heart, but it's called UG HANA Migrate whatever. You just run that program and it will optimize your BPC model to run on HANA. And that's it. Then you have to activate those three parameters that I've shown in the presentation. So one on the global level, one on the environment level, and one on the model level. And then you're good to go.
I wondered if you could just elaborate on the issues which you had, and are they fully solved now with the multiple hierarchies?
Yes. So in the beginning, typically in the account dimension, we had two hierarchies, and in some of the reports we used members from different hierarchies, and the issue was that the statement just simply could not return any data because the actual MDX statement that got generated was not supported on HANA side. I don't know. That's probably a question for Roman, how that technically was solved. But the fact is that it is supported now, and you can just use multiple hierarchies in one report, and you will get back results.
Presenters, feel free to add anything. Any other information that you feel appropriate that you may not have covered already?
Yes, this is Jean here. So I'm talking about, for example, the environment. For example, let's say we are running an Excel report, or we are running a report. In case we do have VBA included in the, heavy VBA script included in the report, so this might also impact also the performance also. So for troubleshooting purpose, we might see if you're reducing the VBA included, if that may help, just to see.
Is it safe to run the HANA migration program multiple times on a migrated environment?
That's a good question. I would have to verify, I'm not sure, but I think it is.
Okay.
In fact, all it does but by default, as of a certain BW release on HANA, all cubes are by default created HANA optimized. But technically what the program does, it makes a non-HANA optimized cube HANA optimized. So if you run it again, then yeah, it will just try to optimize it again and generate the needed views again, but it won't do anything else. But to be tested, because I would have to confirm that.
Is script logic accelerated by HANA MDX?
Script logic is not fully optimized yet to run on HANA. Statements that are optimized are the run allocation is fully optimized to run on HANA. And if you use native MDX statements, inside script logic, then it will be optimized on HANA as well. But other things like when, is, and rec statements, technically they are fully optimized. On the other hand, the same thing applies here. Reading from a HANA system is always faster than reading from a non-HANA system. So whatever you put in your XD member set selection, the data region that you need to query will be read faster from a HANA system, and some of the write back is also accelerated. But the actual logic execution, so the calculation itself, is still running on the application layer, except for native MDX and run allocation statements.
Does this customer use, well, sorry, I don't know this acronym, EVDRE or EPM?
EVDRE, yeah, that's the old reporting interface from 7.5 implementations. Good question, indeed. The customer uses both, actually. All the old reports are based on EVDRE because they prefer the flexibility of using the row and column key ranges. But all new reports, we convinced them to start creating them using the EPM add-in interface, because the performance tends to be a little bit better when using that compared to EVDRE. But they use both.
Okay.
So just to say that EVDRE is fully supported to run on HANA as well, if that is the actual question. I said that I would have to confirm whether you can run the migration program multiple times. I haven't tried it myself. But I would guess it doesn't matter because it's just regenerating the HANA views for the optimized cube structure.